بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله عليه الصلاة والسلام، وعلى آله الأطهار الميامين وأصحابه الطيبين ومن اتبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. الله وحده لا شريك له، المنان بديع السماوات والأرض ذو الجلال والإكرام، الحي القيوم، هو السلام ومنه السلام، تبارك ذي الجلال والإكرام. This is the first time that I give a khutbah since Dr. Maher Hathout passed away. And I am sure that you have already heard the eulogies and all of the appropriate na'i or but this is not a eulogy, and I want to talk about Maher Hathout, who used to be at this podium for many weeks, many Jum'ahs, who is pioneered much of what became of this movement from a different perspective. I want to talk about the type of American Muslim or Muslim in America, and the if you will, the philosophy of existence which impacted not just individuals, but which really raises the question of our role as Muslims in any place in which we dwell. Some of you might know that Maher Hathout, rahmahullah, was a long-time family friend, and so we'll leave this personal aspects aside. But I remember in 1982, I was then a young man full of enthusiasm, and I had immigrated from Egypt to the United States, or even back then, you couldn't call me an immigrant, you could call me a visitor to the United States. I wasn't quite sure if the United States is an appropriate permanent home, but I was full of enthusiasm and zeal to serve Islam. My passion was the idea that I want to serve Islam. And I was staying at Maher Hathout's house when I first arrived. And so I asked him, I said, I've heard so much about the Islamic movement and that you have in Los Angeles and so on. I want to serve Islam, so what do I do? And he said, well, you want to know what to do, you go there. You go there. Go where? Go to the Islamic Center and do whatever is necessary and that needs to be done. And for several, for the months of the months of that summer, I would take a bus from Pasadena to here, and I would come every morning and just do whatever was necessary to be done. I would actually end up most of the time answering the phone, say Assalamu alaikum, Islamic Center of Southern California. But this characterizes and this it tells us a great deal about the frame of mind and mindset of those who carry Islam as a living message, a dynamic exhibition of godliness, of the very amana that God has left in our hearts, and who see their existence on earth as not there to live first and believe second, but those who believe first and exist to believe, and as a result of believing, they continue in this physical domain. What it took for individuals like Dr. Maher Hathout and his late brother, the older Dr. Hassan Hathout, Allah yarhamu, was that a passion where they came to the United States, and of course Hassan, or the older, comes later to the US, but they come to the United States with in their heart a passion that not to play the role of an instructor of Islam. Because brothers and sisters, we have so many, and it's part of our what has become an ailment in our hearts and in our civilizations and in our countries, is that we hear the Prophet's words, ﷺ, that Allah loves for a Muslim when he does something to perfect it, and yutqinah. That Khan is to do the very best at it. We hear it and we transform it into, instead of actually perfecting it, but we turn it into to pretend to exhibit perfection, to perform perfection, instead of to actually do it. So we know that in our communities there are many who perform the acts of religious authority, who will put on the garb, the appearance of religious authority, regardless of the substance. But this individual that has Islam as a passion in the heart and understands Islam fundamentally to be dhikrullah. I once asked Maher Hathout, what is the difference between a true Muslim and or of course I was young, so I'm using imprecise language as well, a genuine Muslim and any other believer in this world that says, I believe in a God. I remember he quite in his typically casual way, he just said, dhikrullah, that a Muslim is in a constant state of dhikr, in a constant state of being with God and in remembrance of God. It's not something that they do simply within the context of a symbolic act that you perform, like attending ceremonies or performing a certain ritual, or through certain symbolisms like a particular Sabbath or so on. It's constant state of being. But I haven't still got to the critical point. Maher Hathout and people like him, and the reason I'm talking today about this is my concern that what will happen with the demise of people like him. They saw Islam as a face for humanity and saw themselves as ambassadors to that Islamic faith, to dominate no one, including their own people, to present no pretensions. If you remember, he never even grew a beard. And I would ask him about that, and he would often say, it's because of the amount of religious prestige that would be assumed by the existence of the beard. It's a level of, in the context of today's world, it's a level of non-truth that I don't want. He didn't even grow a beard. He didn't ever put an imama. He never wore a jibba. None of the pretenses or the symbols of the acts of trying to communicate to you, I am a man of Islam. Rather, what he did was to labor day in and day out, quite often behind the eyes and observations of people. I knew how little he slept, and that his whole life was about how to better represent Islam in this earth, how to become ambassadors of Islam in this country. And it was a constant, persistent theme of all his life. And fundamentally, and this is the most critical point, he understood something that we have to understand, that if Islam remains an immigrant faith, the faith of people who simply immigrate from their homelands, and they come from their homelands with all the baggage, cultural baggage that each of us carries when we immigrate. If Islam doesn't take root in this soil of a nation through its native upsprings, and I'm not talking about second generation Muslims, but that Islam is an invitation to Allah in its essence, wherever it sprouted and flourished. It was fully adopted by the native population itself. Islam in Indonesia, Malaysia, or most of the African states was passed by traders and those who turned to the faith because quite often of dealing with Muslim merchants. That is why he quite understood that Islam cannot be allowed by its opponents to be portrayed as an alien force to the society in which it exists. But I want to say one other thing about this man, who some of you will know that I loved dearly and often disagreed with on, but that is part of what makes our passion, our service to Allah so beautiful. Is that the ikhtilaf and the disagreements is a moral obligation, but the unity and the love between us is a religious obligation owed to God. Maher, well, he was a doctor and his wife was a doctor, and yet, and this is something you won't perhaps hear from anyone but someone who knew him like me, is that the home furniture that I saw in 1982 was the same home furniture that existed when he passed away. In other words, with great earning potential, materialism and the joys of material world were not a part of his world at all, his life at all. And I know that there would be consistently situations where he would have to choose between his profession and the Islamic message that he bears. After having been 30 years in the United States, I can't tell you how rare that passion, that commitment, that willingness to defy even those who will say, it must be that you do not have piety because you do not perform the drama of piety, the acts of piety, the sort of what we and to constantly feel that Islam is an invitation that, having been blessed by it, blessed by Allah to have that passion, to want to share it with everyone in the society in which he lives, the confidence that it takes to do that, and the iman and the taqwa that it takes to do that, is something quite special. وادعوا الله يستجب لكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وسبحان الله وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد خاتم النبيين النبي الأمين. It gives me great worry and concern when I hear our young people drift away from realizing that Islam is not about the culture of their parents, or Islam is not about the habits and practices of one country or another, that Islam is a beautiful message from a beautiful God, full of mercy, compassion, and love. And just simply the lack of example in their lives drifts many of our young people away. Alternatively, many young people who do become interested in Islam act as if they are doing the world a favor by being religious, and so they don't want to be the people to take the bus from Pasadena to the Islamic Center every day to sit around and answer the phone or sweep or clean or whatever what was needed. They want to be the leaders and begin from there. So, and will often, if they're even active, they'll call themselves the leaders of tomorrow. Dawah al-Islamiyya, and this is the key word, dawah. The essence of Islam is an invitation, it's a message, it's a dawah. It's built on a humility and a beauty of heart, soul, and character. And that is really what allowed for the Islamic Center of Southern California to flourish. And at one time, and this are people who, I would hear about the center all the way in Egypt and in Jordan, and people like Hussein Amin would write in his books that this is the hope of Islam in the future. This is where proof that the future is bright. That Allahu A'lam, whether what I think it's too much for anyone to say that this or that is the hope for Islam. Islam doesn't need that type of, but it's an indication of what that basic essence of dawah, the way it impacted well beyond our borders. Brothers and sisters, among the traditions that you don't hear often is a hadith on Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam that says that in the hereafter there are people who are يبعثون في وجوههم النور, that their face are luminous with light. And a man asked the Prophet basically to describe them. Sifhum lana, tell us who are these people that are come in the hereafter with luminous faces, luminous with the aura of divinity and beauty. And the Prophet ﷺ responds, المتحبون في الله من قبائل شتى وبلاد شتى يجتمعون في ذكر الله. That they are people who love one another in Allah from different tribes and different countries. But what unites them is dhikrullah, dhikr. Because dhikr is not simply a tasbih that you perform, it's a passion, it's a way of living. It's where Allah is your partner, your constant companion in every state, and where that companionship makes you makes you like this man, Dr. Maher Hathout, and the movement that he created, which we all, and I say this because it was all done on this podium. And of course I know that if you've heard the Khutbas, especially when he was younger, he's charismatic and fiery. It's something to learn from and to reflect on and to understand that Islam cannot be an alien phenomena to the United States. Otherwise, the type of insane Islamophobia that you see all around you is exactly what happens. That's how it takes root and explodes. When we remain alien, unable to engage it from within the instruments of society, from within the soul of society, but try to engage it as outsiders, by definition, we've lost the engagement. اللهم انصر الإسلام، اللهم اغفر لنا، اللهم اعف عنا، اللهم زدنا علما وزدنا حكمة، وأنر لنا الطريق، وأنر أبصارنا يا علي عظيم يا رب. اللهم ارحمنا وارحم أولادنا وارحم أمواتنا وارحم آباءنا وأجدادنا، وقدرنا على أن نقوم بواجب الإسلام علينا يا رب. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اتبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين، وأقم الصلاة.